It's time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. And joining me via Skype is public affairs commentator Smart Akpeji. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Very well. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the blueprint. Tension as court rules on Edo APC primaries. Party publishes aspirants' credentials, calls for public scrutiny. Obaseki has 3 credits, 3 passes. Izeyamu 6 credits, 2 passes. And then we move to the front page of the national economy. Economic benefits expected across board as cargo evacuation by rail begins. It will decongest the port, shippers cancel. Measure will help in planning bridge communication gap, APMT. To the front page of the Daily Trust now. Coronavirus kills 587 persons in Kano in 5 weeks. Federal government dwarfs 354 COVID-19 national death toll. Disease exposes Nigeria's health system's weaknesses. And finally, on the front page of the Leadership newspaper, aftermath of eased lockdown. Majority of Nigerians still at risk of COVID-19 infection. Federal government warns. Says 600 misery deaths in Kano linked to COVID-19. Governor Ikpeazu, Gombe Speaker, tests positive for virus. Kaba Chief Imam's son were never treated for COVID-19, Kogi government. COVID begins grassroots campaign. Inspector General of Police unveils new operational guidelines for officers. All right, we'll look at this story on the front page of the Daily Trust, talking about the outcome of the investigations in Kano State. You would recall that sometime in April there was a number of persons died in Kano, and there were controversies with regards to what happened. At the time, issues of COVID-19 was still a debate within that state. But from investigation now, it shows that about 60% of the deaths was as a result of COVID-19. I wonder what you make of this development.
First, you find out that when it first started, Kano never really took it serious. And they were nonchalant about it. That even though when everybody, all the West and South, everybody were making noise, particularly, even immediately, Kaduna took it upon themselves. They introduced so many stringent measures, but Kano never did. So when it was even coming, they were attributing the death to so many other issues. But now it is good that the government had come out to say what happened is as a result of this virus pandemic, which shows that Kano state government need to be indicted for what they have done, because they were never taking it very serious. The only thing the governor took serious then was to ask for 15 billion to fight COVID, because Lagos State was giving 10 billion. So to go back to Kano, you see, and to go back to governance, our governments must begin to work together. You see, in a situation where the federal government is working at a different purpose, on a different direction, the state governments are working on different direction. That is why we have never really seen development, because I cannot imagine the rate at which it was going then in Kano, and the Kano government was not even seeing it as a result of the pandemic. But good enough, at least they have seen now that, of course, that it is result to it. And if you look at it, Kano is still one of the states that have first of all relaxed all measures put in place. That is, up to now, even Kano is still not handling it. And if you look at after Lagos in terms of population, Kano is next. So they really have to, if the federal government have to enforce it, if there's anything government have to do to save the life of the people, because the governor might be living in ignorance, might be living in ignorance.
Okay, if I may interrupt your line of thought, so with a development such as this, the presidential task force is saying that it is handing over the fight of COVID-19 over to states, and what they will be doing might just be, or what the federal government will be doing might just be a supervisory role. With this development now, would you say it is advisable that that is the step to be taken?
Well, you see, because of the kind of system we operate, The state government are supposed to function on their own. And when you look at health is on the concurrent list. So there is little the federal government can do when it comes to this. The federal government cannot wholly take it up upon themselves. But I think what we need now at this situation is like a moral situation to the governor to the various governors, telling them, look, you must take it up. And you see, sometimes when they hear from Mr. President himself, when he talks directly to them, when he talks in, he says, some of them does not understand soft tone. If you talk to them in the language, they will understand that, look, if this thing continue, I might be forced to declare a state of emergency in your state and take over things myself. I think perhaps they will listen. Because what is important most in this, you see, even one person's life matters. That we will lose one person's life carelessly to what can be cured, to what can be prevented, is enough reason to shut down a state. So the federal government must at least talk to all these governors, let them take it very serious.
But the financial burden is a major challenge, like some have said, to most of the states right now. We see, like you mentioned, the Kano state government asking for 15 billion naira at the time. What do you make of this, saying that some are already slashing their budgets, even as we speak?
You see, first, that brings us back to what we have always been saying, that in the first place, yes, it's a global thing. What affects A will affect B. But however, how well have these states been doing in terms of internally revenue generation collection? You see, virtually all the states, except for Lagos and some few states, that perhaps, even though in Lagos internally generated revenue, you cannot say it's still fantastic, because I know so many loopholes in the internal revenue generation in Lagos State that needs attention, that needs to be stepped up. I know so many. I've identified so many. But to come up with this is the area where the states are not doing well in internal revenue generation. If you look at the state like Kano, you will ask them what is their internally generated revenue. You probably see that perhaps it's not even up to 10 billion per month. So you now begin to ask. And again, when you go and look at their overhead cost, the overhead cost of governance in this country is too high. And where the income is low, yes, the income is the expenditure is still high. On recurrent expenditure, there is no way there will be development. This is a moment where all the states will come back and look, how do we step up our internally generated revenue? There is no state that cannot do well. I say it again, there is no state that cannot do well if their potentials are well harnessed and if they step up their revenue generation game. You must not always relax must not always wait for the state government, the federal government to give you subvention every month before you can survive. You should be able to survive on your own. So, but we find out that the state governors, they are comfortable taking jets every time to Abuja to ask for to get their allocation, while they are not looking inwardly. After this pandemic, or the moment the ease is relaxed, all states must jack up their internally generated revenue without necessarily hurting people. There are so many leakages that need to be blocked.
All right, Smart Akpeje, thank you so much for speaking with us. Time now to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. And joining me via Skype is a public affairs commentator, Smart Akpeje. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you for having me, and good morning.
All right, let's head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the blueprint. Tension as court rules on Edo APC primaries Thursday. Party publishes aspirant credentials, calls for public scrutiny. Obaseki has 3 credits, 3 passes. Izeyamu 6 credits, 2 passes. And to the front page of the national economy. Economic benefits expected across board as cargo evacuation by rail begins. It will decongest the port, Shippers Council. Measure will help in planning, bridge communication gap, APMT. And to the front page of the Daily Trust. Coronavirus kills 587 persons in Kano in 5 weeks. Federal government dwarfs 354 COVID-19 national death toll. Disease exposes Nigeria's health system's weaknesses. And finally, on the front page of the Leadership newspaper, aftermath of eased lockdown, majority of Nigerians still at risk of COVID-19 infection. Federal government warns, says 600 misery deaths in Kano linked to COVID-19. Governor Ikpeazu Gombe speaker tests positive for virus. Kaba chief imam, son were never treated for COVID-19. Kogi government, COVID begins grassroots campaign. Inspector General of Police unveils new operational guidelines for officers. And this is where I'd like for us to focus our attention on, since the government is looking at easing the lockdown measures gradually. We see that in some states, the churches are reopened. The Federal Capital Territory, churches are reopened, and Lagos State is looking at reopening churches. But the federal government is warning that Nigerians are still at a risk of infection. Cases keep rising on a daily. As of today, the case is over 12,000. Are we at that point where we should be easing these measures?
Well, in the first place, I still think the government has not done enough in terms of sensitization. And what do I mean about this? I'll give you a quick example about Ikorodu, where I live. Sometime during this, I think sometime in May, the Oba of Igbobo made an announcement that everybody should stay at home, and that no shops should open. And do you know what? Everybody obeyed it, because whenever the Oba speaks, you see, people have some notion that it has some spiritual connotation, that if they don't obey, some certain things will happen. And you see, they see this kind of traditional spiritual things as, look, that does not spare, not like the Bible or the Quran. So whenever the Oba or the Bale speaks, people obey more. The government has not carried the people along, the Obas along enough. So they should have even been the forerunner of the pandemic sensitization. And oftenly we have said again that, look, the only way you can get governance closer to the people is when you go to the grassroots, involve the people, involve the CDA, involve the CDA executive, involve the Bales, involve the councillor, involve the Obas. If you do all such things, you have carried the people along. Than for somebody in an Alawasa to be giving to be rolling out some precautions when it can easily be done at the grassroots. I think, honestly, I share the sentiment of the government that even at the end of this, that we'll still have more. Yes, we will have more, because you can even see it now. Even when you go to the market, you see social distancing is not obeyed. When you drive around, you see so many people are not wearing face masks. When you even go, so many people have not even seen sanitizers. So how do you expect it not to spread? Now we are clamoring for opening of churches, religious places. We have not even done enough, because you cannot, the pastors or imams cannot stop people from coming to the church. They cannot stop people from hugging themselves. They cannot stop people from checking themselves. So we are still going to have more of this. It's just unfortunate but that is the bitter truth. We are going to have more. So
from what you have said, if the government had engaged community communicators enough, that what the cases wouldn't have risen to what we are seeing now, and perhaps they would have been able to build trust.
Yes, it will have been nosediving. You see, like I've always been an advocate of community. Even when you talk about security, I'm an advocate of community policing. If you talk about sensitization and prevention, I'm an advocate of community sensitization. You see, the government has not done enough. They do too much, they've concentrated too much power at the top, like the COVID-19 presidential briefing, daily presidential briefing. How many Nigerians, those that are really involved, those that they are really trying to pass the message to, how many of them will sit at home by 4 o'clock when the presidential committee is giving their daily briefing, will want to watch it? But let me tell you, if the town crier goes around very early in the morning, if a town crier goes around in the afternoon. If a town crier goes around in the evening that this is what the Oba have said, this is what the Oba have said, you dare not. You will not, at least for the community where I have lived in Ikorodu, sometimes the governor said, look, there is no Oro. Everybody should go about their community, their this thing. Because they didn't hear from the Oba, people dare not, they obeyed it religiously. So we need to involve all these people. If we don't involve them, I'm sorry, we will not succeed.
Perhaps this is why the government is pushing the fight to the states, because according to them, these communities are within the state and we have the traditional institutions within these communities. And so moving forward now, do you think that perhaps this might change the dynamics in its approach and perhaps flatten the curve moving forward?
You see, in the first place, they will say the way the day will be, it is the morning that will show. They do not wait. The government, these various state governments, they've been involved in all this sensitization. They've been involved in all in the education. They should not wait until power is finally handed over to them. They have it already. The one they have, what have they done with it? What I'm saying is that, look, calling the local government chairman, the obas within your domain, this is your responsibility. Calling the councillors within your domain, this is your responsibility. And back it up with some funding. Not concentrating everything at the top there. We have not done enough. So even though either the federal government remove his hand, what the government is trying to do, what the federal government is trying to do, is to perhaps say, look, you are all complaining that it is not easy to feed, it is not easy to do it. Let us shift it to the state. As far as I'm concerned, it will not change the dynamics, it will not change the narratives, because you are not doing the right thing. The only way we could do it now is that it is not too late. Let the governors get working, get the local government chairman, get the local government chairman, get all the paramount traditional rulers in all local governments, put all of them together, and let them begin to do the sensitization, and also back it up with funding, because there is no way they will do it for free.
Aside that, there are also concerns with regards to the issue of the use of face masks, and also having the presence of perhaps hygiene, especially talking about hand washing, no water in some communities. How should the state governments now begin to look into this area, seeing that they would now be moving to the grassroots to ensure that the community spread of the virus?
One thing that, because I've read a lot about this spread, hand washing is extremely very important as to the face mask, because there is hardly any time that within 10 minutes that no matter how disciplined you are, except if you are handcuffed, that you will not touch your nose, you will not touch your mouth, or you will not touch your face. So hand washing is extremely very important. Do you have water? Now, in my house, they've been coming to fetch water maybe for over 3 days, because we do not have public electricity. It has issue, and not so many people can power this thing in their house. So, but because I could, they will come to the house to fetch water, and I even had to get a hose to even put out so that people can even fetch it with ease. That is to tell you how many people could do that. We don't have water. Everybody is a local government on his own. You provide your water, you provide your security. You see, these are also systemic failure. There is no way we're talking about, but perhaps to narrow it to what we are saying, this is where the government should look more. You see, you cannot be bringing water from Adiyon and say it's going to serve the people of Ikorodu effectively. It will not work. We have to decentralize it. Ikorodu water works must work. And instead of everybody having a borehole, we must have public water system in every house running. If you have it running, then people will be ready to pay the bill. But when you don't have it, how will people pay? So now, if we look at that, what we should be emphasizing on is this hand washing. It is very, very important. It is very, very genuine in order to curtail the spread. Go to the markets. Go to the markets. I pass through over 4 markets every day if I'm going to the farm, because of late I've been going to the farm more. When I go to the farm, I pass through about 4 markets. No public water. There is not any form of hand washing going on in all these markets, and you're expecting not to spread. Look, the figure is even far beyond what the government is proclaiming, but so many people would rather prefer to treat themselves locally. some people would have to treat themselves in isolation than bringing it to the public burner. That is why we probably see sometimes that the figure is extremely very high, because I believe COVID-19 exists and it is spreading because we are not taking enough measures to curtail it. We don't have water. And also this issue of face mask, we just pick up sort of face mask. Is it being enforced? No. So it's a whole lot of problem. I don't know how we'll get this solved. But the only way we'll get this solved is that let us try to change the dynamics. Let us go back to the local governments. Let us put it in the hands of the obas. Let us put it in the hands of the Bale, the CDAs, the local government chairmen, the councillors. Let them be the forerunner.
All right, Smart Akwejoyi, thank you for speaking with us.